My name is Betty Muir Johnston, and my main career was raising my family. As I went through my life, I kept being asked to do things along the financial path, and I really didn't want to do that. My picture of a financial person was covers on my sleeves, a green visor, and I really never intended to start out with finance. It just fell to me. In my main career, I had a friend who worked at Jet Propulsion Laboratories. He was looking for someone to hire for a job in the lab's reports section. The only work I had really done before that was my job out of college was I worked for the importer of Jaguar cars. And I think Mr. Hornberg wanted to train me to be the first female salesperson of Jaguar cars. We didn't get that far because Jim was drafted and we left the area. So from there, things just seemed to lead me toward being in finance. I didn't really get excited about it until I actually started at JPL. My education was as Bachelor of Science in marketing, and that was the total training I had for this job. Number one, I think you need to learn how to work with people. I think that's very important. You have to have some good knowledge about your own bookkeeping, whatever. And just daily life experiences. I think it helped that I had a college degree and that in that degree I got acquainted with accounting. But that was never a career path that I expected to follow.
Okay, number 5. What formal education background do you need?
I think it probably would have helped me greatly if I had had more accounting background. As a business major, you had to take basic accounting. So as far as that went, that was my main preparation for the job. Being in the space industry, when the things that were going on at that time were really, really exciting. The job, when I started at JPL, I was in the reports department. And so all the financial reports would come through my office. Trying to put it in the right perspective here. I was asked after, well, I started out cleaning up the accounts. JPL never received a single dollar for projects. All of the income that came into JPL was by unique project number. There was no cash that ever crossed the boards. You would charge to this UPN. So that was exciting because it was a total new way of looking at finance. After I'd been there, let's see, I started at JPL in 1972, and in about 78 or 79, I was asked if I would like to go out as the chief financial person on a job that was to supposedly at that time launch in the 80s. I think the original launch was planned for 86. So I got in at that point in time. I think the estimate on that job was $19,780,000. So I mean, I jumped in with a fairly high-priced vehicle. It was the wide field and planetary camera that went up on the space shuttle. Am I answering your questions?
Yeah, no,
I love the interface between the financial and the scientific part, though I never really had all that knowledge about the scientific part. Anyway, the favorite thing was getting our budgets approved, if that helps any. Long hours, a lot of travel back and forth to Washington, D.C. Budget negotiations. I think, you know, the hours, when we first started out on this job, with the early launch time, we had a budget that started with that. Then the launch time is the thing that cost the increase in the budget overall, because we had to keep the personnel, and going back and negotiating for changing bottom line dollars was always pretty tough. But I did have one interesting thing. The financial person on the other side of the job, when we go for a financial review, if he had a red shirt on that day, we knew to be very careful because he was going to say no anytime he could. And if he had a green shirt on, we knew there was a chance to get our budgets approved. Oh, my first advice, obviously, is it would be made a lot easier if they had an accounting background. I learned the hard way, shall we say. So I'd have been better prepared if I had had more accounting background. Master's degree might have been a good thing. I don't think there was a typical work day. I normally would get to work about 8 o'clock, I think, and I think Jim will tell you that I rarely got home before 6 or 7 at night, so the hours were long, and the travel was very hard to be away from family and so forth. But we'd end up going back to headquarters and with the budget, and they would look at the budget and go, that won't do. And so we'd have to come back to the lab and rework the budget. Sometimes travel back and forth for Washington 2 times a week, which got pretty tiresome. kind of answered in the previous one. I don't think there was a typical, but it certainly wasn't 8 hours. So Jim learned to cook pretty well. The field itself probably isn't. I think businesses need to be even better prepared today with their finances, with their budgets. I mean, it's not a slam bang and here you go with any budget nowadays. So I would say it's a growing field. Well, I hope there are never any minimum wages in the finance world, but you know, finance itself is such a broad field. Only thing I can say is people need to be prepared for the unexpected in the financial world. I just had to ask Jim about that, and somewhere between 130, 150, Jim, is that right? Yeah, a year. But travel was a negative for me, but we always made the best of it. We always traveled American Airlines, and I was the only woman on the job at that time. But I think, you know, you have to be ready to take what comes, good or bad. Working with others can be tough. I happen to have been working with some really great people, and they always were ready to listen. I mean, they go, "Oh no, not again. We have a budget," but they listened to me. So you need to be able to speak emphatically. You need to be able to understand what you're selling yourself and the finances, budgets you want to put across. Well, the young man that did this job before me got fired. So, but you know, the financial person gains so much insight into the financial world of whatever product you're dealing with that I think there would have to be something pretty drastic to fire somebody in this kind of job because they had all the knowledge that they would be taking with them. Well, I had if you're talking about me, because I had a hand in more things than just space budgets. But obviously in finance, it would seem to me that there would be job openings with many corporations and industries. So if you have good financial experience, I would think it would be there would be jobs out there. Paperwork, meetings, paperwork would probably be 40% looks like a pretty good number. Meetings. Probably 55%. That takes care of pretty much of a day. You know, I think you need to be able to take chances. I would rather have been home with my children. I got tired of women's groups and meeting and haggling in those groups, so I reached out and took a job that challenged me. And I think women particularly are better off in the business world nowadays, but I think you need to maybe reach beyond, I definitely say reach beyond what you're familiar with. Just don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Because I think most people are going to find out they can do more than they ever thought they could.